That tin of sardines sitting in your pantry right now looks like one of the healthiest choices you could make. Omega-3s, protein, calcium, heart health in a little metal can. Doctors recommend them, dietitians love them, and at $2 or $3 a tin, they seem like one of the last honest foods left on supermarket shelves in Australia. But open the wrong tin today, and you are not getting ocean freshness. You are getting mystery fish from unlabeled overseas factories. Oil's gone rancid in a warehouse before they even reached your Woolworths. Heavy metals building silently in tissue your body cannot flush out, and bacteria that can stop your lungs from working. Not a stomach bug you shake off in a day. A toxin so powerful that a single contaminated spoonful can land you in intensive care at your nearest hospital. Today, we are counting down 7 sardine tins sold right here in Australia that you need to pull from your pantry immediately. We are naming the brands, we are showing you exactly why, and we are naming the evidence that the companies hoped you would never find. Stay right to the end, because we are also revealing 2 brands that are genuinely safe, properly tested, and worth every cent you spend on them. The truth about what is hiding behind those convenient little pull tab lids starts right now. At number 7, John West. The blue and gold label you have probably trusted your whole life. Responsible sourcing, quality seafood, the kind of brand that feels as reliable as a handshake from a neighbour. Australians have been buying John West for generations, and that trust is exactly what makes what happened so disturbing. In 2022, the UK Food Standards Agency issued an urgent recall for John West boneless sardines in olive oil. The reason listed in the official notice was potential microbiological contamination. That is a clinical phrase for something deeply unsettling. Invisible bacteria, inside tins that look completely normal on the outside. Sealed, undamaged, no swelling, no smell through the lid, no warning at all until people cracked them open and ate them. John West sardines flow through the same global supply chain, whether they end up in a British supermarket or on a Woolworths shelf in Brisbane. The brand sources fish internationally through large commercial operations with multiple handling points between ocean and can. Every extra step the fish passes through is another opportunity for contamination to enter a process that should be airtight from start to finish. A food safety researcher in Melbourne described it this way: when a product recall happens in one market for a globally distributed brand, the prudent assumption is that the same risk exists wherever the same product is sold. The supply chain does not change at national borders. The fish does not get safer because it crossed the equator. Open a tin of John West sardines and the smell is neutral, processed, uniform, like something built in a factory rather than harvested from the sea. The fillets are consistent in size and colour in a way that real fish, handled carefully from a particular catch, simply is not. That factory consistency tells a story about industrial scale and the compromises that come with it. For seniors managing any immune condition, microbiological contamination is not just an inconvenience. FSANZ, Food Standards, Australia, New Zealand. The body responsible for food safety in this country is clear that contamination can be life-threatening for anyone whose immune system is not operating at full strength. A trusted label does not mean a tested product. John West built its reputation over decades, but reputation is not the same thing as independent verification. Coming in at number 6, Green Seas. Another name that sounds like clean water and responsible fishing. Green Seas. The branding practically writes itself. Environmentally conscious, ocean-friendly, a brand that Australian families have reached for at the supermarket for years on the strength of that wholesome image. Then you look at who actually owns Green Seas. It is Thai Union Group, the Thai multinational that is the single largest producer of canned seafood on the planet. Thai Union processes more fish in a year than most countries catch in a decade. And here is where the wholesome image starts to crack badly. Between 2015 and 2018, Thai Union was the subject of investigations by the Environmental Justice Foundation and multiple international human rights organizations. Their findings documented labor abuses across Thai Union's supply chain. Workers on vessels supplying fish to Thai Union processing facilities reported conditions that included forced labor, dangerous working environments, and wages deliberately withheld. The Guardian, the Associated Press, and Greenpeace all ran investigative pieces detailing what was happening on the boats that ultimately supplied fish to brands owned by Thai Union. Thai Union's response was to launch a sustainability initiative and announce reform commitments. They called it a journey toward improvement. What they did not do was provide Australian consumers with any mechanism to verify whether the specific sardines in the tin they were buying came from a certified ethical source. FSANZ requires country of origin labelling in Australia. Look at a tin of green sea sardines and you will find that information. What you will not find is the name of the specific vessel, the specific catch, or any independently verified documentation of what happened between ocean and tin. Pour the sardines from a tin onto a plate and they hold together adequately, processed to a standard level of firmness. The oil is pale and thin, a basic commercial grade pressed from whatever vegetable base is cheapest at the time of processing. For Australian consumers who choose green seas because the name sounds responsible, the reality is that they are buying into the supply chain of a corporation with a documented history of ethical failures that no amount of green branding can erase. At number 5, Coles Sardines, the store brand. Right there on the middle shelf below the national brands, marked with that familiar red Coles label. At $2 a tin or less, they look like the sensible budget choice, and Coles is the supermarket you trust. Surely they would not put something unsafe on their own shelves. Here's what Coles does not tell you about those sardines. Country of origin labeling will tell you the fish came from somewhere. What it will not tell you is which processor handled them, what batch testing was performed, what the contamination counts looked like before the tins were sealed, or whether independent laboratory verification happened at any point between fishing and shelf. Coles sources store brand sardines through tender processes, where price is the primary competitive variable. The cheapest compliant supplier wins the contract. In the global sardine industry, being the cheapest compliant supplier means making choices about processing speed, ingredient quality, and testing frequency that premium brands would not make. The math is brutally simple. A tin sold for $2 cannot fund the same quality assurance processes as a tin sold for $5. Food safety investigators testing budget canned seafood have found that traceability, the ability to verify where a product came from and how it was handled, is disproportionately absent from house brand and budget canned fish lines. The economic pressures that create that situation are identical worldwide. Open a tin of Coles sardines and the oil is pale. The fillets break apart at the touch. The smell is flat and generic, nothing suggesting a specific origin or a particular water or a distinct catch. It smells like the result of industrial processing optimized for cost and shelf life. Your body is not getting the omega-3 content, the clean protein, or the calcium that properly handled wild sardines deliver. You're getting a processed approximation of the thing you think you are eating. Number 4, Woolworths Essentials Sardines. Everything said about the Coles store brand applies here, and then some. Woolworths Essentials Sardines occupy the absolute bottom of the market in terms of price transparency and sourcing accountability. A tin for under $2, stacked in the home brand section of every Woolworths from Darwin to Hobart. In 2019, the ACCC, the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission, issued a broader consumer warning about misleading country of origin claims on store brand seafood products from both major Australian supermarkets. The warning noted that country of origin labelling as required under Australian law tells you where the fish was caught. It does not tell you where it was processed, what testing it underwent, or what the full ingredient profile actually contains once processing additives are factored in. Woolworths sources its essential sardines through the same cost-competitive tender process as every other major retailer. In a market where the winning bid comes from the processor offering the lowest price per unit, the incentive structure actively works against consumer safety. Testing costs money, independent verification costs money, transparent batch coding costs administrative resources. When you are bidding on a contract to supply $2 sardines, every cost saved is a margin gained, and those savings come from somewhere. A food safety consultant who has worked with FSANZ review processes describes store brand canned seafood as the least scrutinised category on Australian supermarket shelves. National brands get recalled and it makes the news. Store brands get quietly removed and resupplied with minimal public attention because there is no brand name equity to protect. The accountability mechanism that exists for branded products simply does not function in the same way. At number 3, Season Brand Sardines. Available at IGA stores and specialty importers across Australia, often positioned as a step up from home brand without the cost of a premium label. Attractive packaging, a suggestion of Mediterranean quality. The sort of product a health-conscious shopper picks up feeling good about their decision. Independent laboratory testing of Season Brand sardines conducted by consumer researchers found arsenic levels in some products that exceeded what regulators in stricter markets consider acceptable in a single serving. Arsenic is a naturally occurring heavy metal that accumulates in marine organisms. Small amounts are unavoidable in any seafood. But the question for any sardine brand is whether their testing protocol catches elevated levels before those tins reach consumers, and whether they are transparent about where their threshold sits. Seasoned brand publishes no independent testing data for Australian consumers, no batch-specific results, no heavy metal verification from a third-party laboratory accessible to the people buying the product. The absence of that information is not a technical oversight. It is a business decision about what to spend money on. The ACCC requires that food labels not mislead consumers, but it cannot compel a brand to publish testing data it simply chooses not to conduct. Australian consumer law protects you from false label claims. It cannot protect you from a brand that simply never commissions the testing. Here is what makes arsenic particularly dangerous for the people most likely to be eating sardines daily. Seniors who eat canned sardines regularly for their omega-3 and calcium content are the same demographic most vulnerable to heavy metal accumulation. The kidneys of a 70-year-old in Adelaide do not process arsenic as efficiently as those of a 30-year-old. The accumulation happens slowly, silently, across months and years of meals that should have been improving health rather than quietly compromising it. Arsenic does not make a sardine taste different. It does not change the color of the oil, it leaves no smell, you cannot detect it standing in a supermarket aisle or opening the tin in your kitchen. The only way to know is laboratory testing. And Seasoned Brand is not doing that testing transparently. Coming in at number 2, Brunswick Sardines, the red and white tin. Available in Coles and Woolworths across Australia. Imported and distributed as a budget tier option for families who want a recognisable brand name without paying full price for a premium product. Brunswick has been around long enough to feel trustworthy by default, which is exactly the problem. The sodium content in Brunswick sardines in tomato sauce sits at over 450 milligrams per serving. That is nearly 20% of the total daily sodium limit recommended by the Heart Foundation of Australia for healthy adults. For anyone managing blood pressure, heart disease, or kidney function, which describes a large proportion of the Australians most likely to be eating sardines regularly for health reasons, that sodium load in a single small serving is not a minor consideration. It is a cardiovascular event waiting to happen over time. Brunswick sardines are processed in facilities with no publicly available independent testing records for heavy metals, microbiological contamination, or the quality of the oil used in processing. The brand does not publish batch testing data. The supply chain documentation available to Australian consumers consists of a country of origin statement on the tin, nothing more. Consumer testing of similar budget sardine imports in overseas markets found that tomato sauce varieties had particularly elevated levels of preservatives and flavour enhancers used to mask lower quality base ingredients. The tomato that coats a Brunswick sardine is not fresh tomato processed to complement quality fish. It is a sauce formulated to make the product palatable regardless of the underlying ingredient quality. Open a tin in your kitchen. The smell is the tomato sauce, not the fish. That is not an accident. It is formulation deliberately designed to ensure the dominant sensory experience comes from the sauce, not the fish. And at number 1, the worst offender on Australian shelves today. Generic and unbranded sardine tins. The ones with no recognisable brand name. The ones you find at small grocery stores and discount import shops in every major Australian city, stacked in cardboard boxes with minimal English labelling. The ones that cost under $1.50 and seem almost too good to be true, because they are. Australian Border Force and FSANZ have issued warnings about canned seafood entering Australia through indirect import channels that allow products to bypass the full inspection regime applied to direct imports from markets with documented food safety problems. Independent laboratory analysis of unlabelled canned sardines sold at discount importers in Sydney and Melbourne has found products with no traceable origin signature, oils that failed purity tests, fish that did not match the species on the label, and in several cases, no evidence that the standard sterilisation process required to eliminate Clostridium botulinum had been applied correctly. Clostridium botulinum produces the most acutely toxic substance known to science. A sealed tin of improperly sterilised sardines can contain botulinum toxin with no external sign of any problem whatsoever. No swelling, no odour through the lid, no discoloration you can see without opening. You open it, you eat it, and within hours to days, the toxin begins shutting down nerve signal transmission. For a healthy adult, botulism means intensive care and a ventilator. For a senior already managing heart disease or reduced kidney function in a Perth suburb or a Melbourne apartment, it can mean something far worse and far more permanent. Australian import regulations require country of origin labelling, and require that food products meet FSANZ safety standards. What they cannot do is verify every tin in a shipment from a country where the documentation attached to that shipment is itself fraudulent. Do not buy sardines with no recognizable brand name. Do not buy sardines where the label is primarily in a language you cannot read with no clear English equivalent. Do not buy sardines with no batch code, no best before date clearly printed in standard format, and no country of origin stamp that traces to a market with verifiable food safety standards. The $1.50 you save is not worth the risk of what can be inside. Go check your pantry right now. If you see John West, Green Seas, a Coles or Woolworths Essential Store brand, Season, Brunswick, or anything with no recognizable brand name, pull them out. Do not finish the tins. Your health is not worth saving $2 on a product that may be doing you quiet, cumulative damage. But do not give up on sardines entirely. 2 brands prove that the real thing still exists and is sitting on shelves in Australia right now. Safe pick 1, King Oscar. This Norwegian brand has been producing canned sardines since 1902. More than a century of doing one thing and doing it with verifiable standards. King Oscar sardines are widely available at Coles and Woolworths across Australia, and they represent everything the brands we just exposed are not. Every King Oscar product comes with documented country of origin, batch traceability, and sourcing from fisheries that carry independent certification. The brand publishes supplier information. You can verify where your fish came from. That level of transparency is nearly non-existent among the budget sardine brands that dominate Australian supermarket shelves. Open a tin of King Oscar sardines in extra virgin olive oil, and the difference is immediate. The oil is golden and clear. The smell is clean and briny, like cold seawater over fresh fish. The fillets hold together, firm and distinct, not mushy, not broken down by industrial overcooking. The flavour is real and complex, slightly sweet from quality fish handled properly from sea to tin. For seniors who eat sardines for cardiovascular and bone health, King Oscar delivers the genuine omega-3 content, the real calcium, and the clean protein that the health benefits of sardines are actually based on. At around $4 to $5 a tin, they cost more than a Coles store brand. They also do not come with a question mark about what is actually inside. Safe pick 2, Safcol. This is an Australian brand with a committed approach to sustainability and sourcing transparency that sets it apart from both the store brands and the budget imports. Safcol's Harbour Fresh range is Marine Stewardship Council certified, which means independent third-party verification that the fisheries supplying their products meet environmental and sustainability standards that have been externally audited. MSC certification is not a label a brand can apply to itself. It requires an external audit process conducted by accredited certifiers against documented catch data. When you see that blue MSC tick on a Safcol tin, you are looking at a claim that has been verified by an organisation with no financial relationship to the brand selling the product. Safcol sardines are available at Woolworths and IGA stores nationally. They use extra virgin olive oil, and their ingredient lists are short: fish, olive oil, salt. Nothing you need to research before you feel comfortable putting it in your body. The sodium is managed. The sourcing is documented. The brand has not appeared in any FSANZ recall notice for microbiological contamination or heavy metal breach. Open a tin and the oil is real olive oil with a green tint and genuine aroma. The fish smells like the sea. The fillets have texture and integrity. This is what sardines are supposed to be when the people making them care more about the product than the margin. And there you have it. 7 sardine tins sold right here in Australia that you need to stop buying today, and 2 that are genuinely worth your trust and your money. The sardine industry counts on you assuming that a sealed tin is a safe tin. It is not always. What is inside that tin depends entirely on decisions made by people you will never meet, in facilities you will never see, using sourcing processes you have no visibility into unless the brand chooses to be open with you. John West, Green Seas, Coles, Woolworths Essentials, Season, Brunswick, generic imports with no name you recognize. Pull them out. King Oscar and Safcol. Put them in. Drop a comment right now with the brand sitting in your pantry. Let us see how many Australian kitchens have been trusting the wrong tins for years. If this opened your eyes, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another guide like this. More investigations coming. Stay sharp, stay healthy, and keep rising.